Quick ports cheat sheet DNS bind 53 TCP UDP DHCP ISC 67 UDP 68 UDP client DHCP v6 server 547 or client 546 FTP vs FTPD Pro FTPD control 21 TCP active data 20 TCP passive data defined range example 40,000 to 40,100 TCP NFS RPC bind 111 TCP or UDP NFS 2049 TCP or UDP common extra mount the example 892 TCP UDP stat D example 662 log D example 4045. You can fix mount D or stat D or log D ports to static values. TFTP or PXE 69 UDP TFTP PXE also uses DHCP 67 or 68 plus file server HTTP 80 or FTP 21 for installers. Kickstart HTTP 80 TCP or 443 for HTTPS 69 UDP for TFTP if using it. Xen or libvirt local management no specific public ports normally. Remote libvirt commonly 16509 TCP if you enable Xen API backends may use other ports varies. Apache HTTP 80 TCP 443 TCP Samba SMB or CFS 137 UDP 138 UDP 139 TCP 445 TCP Squid default 3128 TCP common but configurable often 3128 or 8080 Sendmail or postfix SMTP 25 TCP submission 587 TCP SMTPS legacy 465 TCP NTP or cron 123 UDP NIS serve uses RPC port mapper 111 plus dynamic RPC ports. NIS is insecure, avoid if possible. LDAP, Open LDAP 389, LDAP, TCP LDAP 636, TCP LDAP S. Firewall management, firewall manages services or ports, NF tables or IP tables or rule sets. General SE Linux and firewall tips applies to many services. List SE Linux booleans that mention a service. Get SE bool -a pipe grep -a service. Example get SE bool -a pipe grep -httpd set SE Linux boolean persistently preview. Get SE bool boolean underscore name enable persistently set SE bool capital P boolean underscore name space on. Add file context and restore. Example for web files install SE manage if missing. RHL or CentOS M install -y policy core utils -python -utils. Debian or Ubuntu apt-get install -y policy core utils. SE manage fcontext -httpd underscore sys underscore content underscore t double quote slash srv slash triple w parenthesis slash dot asterisk question mark close double quote. Restore con capital RV slash srv slash triple w. Add a custom TC UDP or TCP port type. Example allow HTTPD to listen on TCP 8080. SE manage port -TCTP underscore port underscore T -P TCP 8080. Firewall preferred on RHL ecosystems. Add a service or port permanently and reload. Firewall -cmd permanent add service is equal to HTTP. Firewall -cmd permanent add port is equal to 3128 slash TCP. Firewall -cmd reload IP tables classic IP tables capital A input -p TCP -d port 80 -m contract -c state new -j accept as save IP tables -save redirected to slash etc slash sconfig slash IP tables RHEL or Debian IP tables save redirected to slash etc slash IP tables slash rules dot v4. NF tables recommended modern replacement. NFT add table inet filter. NFT single quote add chain inet filter input. Braces type filter hook input. Priority 0 semicolon policy drop semicolon. NFT add rule inet filter input CT state established comma related accept. NFT add rule inet filter input TCP D port 80 accept persist NFT list the rule set redirect it to /et/slash nftables.conf. Now the pre-service quick start and sample configs DNS bind name D port 53/TCP and 53/UDP packages bind RHEL or bind 9 Debian main files rhl/etc/named.conf zone files in /var/named Debian :/bind/named.conf/etc/bind/named.conf options /etc/bind/named.conf.local zone files in /var/cache/bind or /etc/bind/zones. Minimal steps rhlm install -y bind -utils debian apt -get install -y bind 9 DNS utils basic /etc/named.conf options in braces listen on port 53 in braces any semicolon close braces semicolon listen on v6 in braces none semicolon close braces semicolon directory in double quote /var/named semicolon hello hyphen query in braces any semicolon recursion yes semicolon forwarders forwarders 8.8.8.8 semicolon 8.4 4.4 semicolon close braces semicolon close braces semicolon zone double quote example.com in type master semicolon file double quote zone /db.example.com close double quote semicolon hello hyphen update in braces none semicolon close braces semicolon example forward zone /var/named/zone/db.example.com $TTL 86,400 at the rate in ns1.example.com dot hostmaster.example.com dot in parenthesis 20250808001 semicolon serial 3600 semicolon 900 semicolon retry 604800 expire mini 86400 minimum ins1.example.com ns1 in a 192.168.1.10 www in a 192.168.1.20 start or enable systemctl enable now named rhl or systemctl enable hyphen now bind 9 debian linux if bind must write non-standard zones allow named to write zones set bool hyphen capital p named underscore write underscore master underscore zone space on if hash if using custom dir manage if context hyphen t name t underscore zone underscore t double quote /srv/parent name d parenthesis slash dot asterisk question mark close double quote restore gone hyphen capital rv/srv/named firewall hyphen cmd hyphen permanent hyphen add hyphen port is equal to 53/tcp firewall hyphen cmd hyphen permanent hyphen add hyphen port is equal to 53/udp firewall hyphen cmd hyphen reload or ip table /nft equivalent DHCP ISC DHCP server ports UDP 67 server UDP 68 client DHCP v6 547 or 546 package DHCP server RHL ISC DHCP server Debian config file etc DHCP DHCPD.com sample etc DHCP DHCPD.com option domain name double quote example.com example.local option domain name servers ns1.example.com 8.8.8.8 semicolon default lease time 600 max lease time 7200 subnet 192.168.1.0 netmask 255.255.255.0 range 192.168.1.100 192.168.1.200 option routers 192.168.1.1 option broadcast address 192.168.1.255 for PXE next type on server 192.168 Option routers 192.168.1.1 option broadcast address 192.168.1.255 for peaks next server 192.168.1.10 file name double quote pxe linux.0 enable service systemctl enable now DHCP systemctl enable now ISC DHCP server firewall seamed permanent add port is equal to 67 slash UDP firewall seamed reload FTP vs FTP commonly ports 21 slash TCP control 20 slash TCP data for active passive range define package vsftpd config etc vsftpd.conf example settings anonymous underscore enable is equal to no local underscore enable is equal to yes right underscore enable is equal to yes chroot underscore local underscore user is equal to yes hello underscore writable underscore chroot is equal to yes pasv underscore enable is equal to yes pasv underscore min underscore port is equal to 40,000 pasv underscore max underscore port is equal to 40,100 if behind NAT PSV underscore address is equal to your public IP. Your public IP. SC Linux check available booleans get SC bool hyphen if prep hyphen FTP common boolean FTP underscore home underscore DR set SC bool hyphen capital P FTP underscore home underscore DR on allow FTP access to users home directory if needed firewall hyphen seamed hyphen permanent hyphen add hyphen port is equal to 21 slash TCP firewall seamed permanent add port is equal to 40,000 40,100 slash TCP firewall dm reload NFS v3 or v4 ports RPC by 111 TCP slash UDP NFS 2049 TCP or UDP mount D stat D log D use extra ports set them static for firewalling common choices mount D 892 stat D 662 log D 4045 package NFS-details RHEL NFS-kernel-server Debian export slash etc slash exports r slash etc slash exports dot d slash asterisk dot exports example slash etc slash exports slash srb slash nfs slash share 192.168.1.0 slash 24 read write comma sync comma no subtree check make ports static. RHL example so you can open firewall ports reliably. Edit etc sysconfig NFS and add or adjust. RPC mount the OPTS is equal to double quote manage GIDS hyphen port GIDs port 892 hyphen manage hyphen GIDs hyphen port 892. Stat the OPTS is equal to hyphen port 662 hyphen outgoing hyphen port 2020. Log D underscore TCP port is equal to 4045. Log D UDP port is equal to 4045. On Debian, put similar options into etc default NFS kernel server or etc modprobe.dlogd.conf. etc modprobe.dlogd.conf options log D NLM underscore TCP port is equal to 4045. NLM UDP port is equal to 4045. Start and export systemctl enable now NFS-server RHEL export FS-RAV SC Linux to export directory set SC bool capital P NFS underscore export underscore all underscore RW on SC manage NFS export all read write SC manage context hyphen a hyphen T NFS underscore T double quote slash SRV slash NFS parenthesis slash dot asterisk close parenthesis question mark close double quote restore con hyphen capital RV slash SRV slash NFS firewall allow RPC bind and NFS and mount D plus chosen static ports firewall seamed permanent add service is equal to NFS firewall seamed permanent add service is equal to RPC bind or explicitly firewall seamed permanent add port is equal to 2049 slash TCP firewall cmd permanent add port is equal to 111 slash Firewall hyphen cmd hyphen permanent hyphen add hyphen port is equal to 2049 slash TCP firewall hyphen tmd hyphen permanent hyphen add hyphen port is equal to 111 slash TCP firewall hyphen cmd hyphen permanent hyphen add hyphen port is equal to 111 slash UDP. Firewall cmd permanent add port is equal to 892 slash TCP. Firewall cmd permanent add port is equal to 662 slash TCP. Firewall cmd reload. PXE or TFTP now for network boot ports TFTP 69 slash UDP plus DHCP port 67 slash 68 boot files usually retrieved via TFTP 69 or HTTP 80 for modern IPXE. Packages TFTP server RHL or TFTP HPA Debian plus sys Linux or PXE Linux packages TFTP root var live TFTP boot. Install TFTP and copy PXE Linux.0 menus. Init rdbm linux into var live TFTP boot PXE Linux.cfg slash ensure SE Linux label SE manage F context hyphen T TFTP DAR underscore T double quote slash var slash live slash TFTP boot parenthesis slash dot asterisk close parenthesis question mark close double quote restore con hyphen capital RB slash var slash live slash TFTP boot. If using Apache for Kickstart or boot files, put them under slash var slash www slash HTML and serve via Apache AT. The PXE DHCP file name may be UNDA only.kpxe or pxelinux.0 depending on the setup. Firewall cmd permanent add port is equal to 69 slash UDP. Firewall cmd reload kickstart automated installs ports 8 HTTP 80 or HTTPS 443 TFTP 16 if using TFTP files case.cfg kickstart file place in webroot colon slash var slash www slash html slash case.cfg. Example kernel cmd line pxe append initrd is equal to initrd.img inst.case is equal to http colon double forward slash 192.168.1.10 slash case.cfg. SC Linux serve case files with web context. SC manage web context hyphen t http underscore sys underscore content underscore t double quote slash var slash www slash html slash case parenthesis slash dot asterisk close parenthesis question mark close double quote restore con hyphen capital RB slash var slash www slash html slash ks. If HTTPD needs to fetch remote resources during Kickstart, set SCBOL hyphen capital P HTTPD underscore can underscore network underscore connect space on. Xen host or DOM0 ports, typically local management if enable livebird for Xen remote livebird commonly uses 16509 or TCP over open only if needed. Xen XAPI used by some distros may use other ports varies. Config files VM configs often in slash etc slash xen slash asterisk.cfg are managed via libvirt slash etc slash libvirt slash kemu for libvirt hyphen managed guess. Bridge files in slash etc slash sysconfig slash network hyphen slip slash ifcfg hyphen br0 rhl or slash etc slash network slash interfaces debian quick steps. Installs and packages m install hyphen yzen or apt hyphen get installs in hyphen hypervisor hyphen AMD64 Xen hyphen tools and make sure grub boots kernel Xen kernel. Create a bridge BR0 and attach physical link. Put yes on that bridge. Expand example RHL IFCFG slash etc slash sysconfig slash network hyphen script slash IFCFG hyphen BR0. Device is equal to BR0. Type is equal to bridge boot. Photo is equal to non boot is equal to yes. Create guest config slash etc slash n slash myvm.cfg and start with Excel. Create slash etc slash n slash myvm.cfg or use libvirt slash varsh firewall open libvirt port only if remote management required. Firewall cmd permanent add port is equal to 16509 slash TCP. firewall -cmd reload Apache 80/TCP 443/TCP packages HTTP RHL or Apache to Debian. Main files rhl/etc/httpd/conf/httpd.conf vhost/etc/httpd/conf.d debian/etc/apache2/apache2.conf vhost/etc/apache2/sites sample vhost debian style virtual host *80 server name www.example.com document root /var/www/html example error log dollar embraces apache underscore log underscore dr slash example error dot log custom log dollar embraces apache underscore log underscore dr slash example access dot log combined angular bracket / virtual host enable and start systemctl enable f1 http DHCP systemctl enable f1 apache to debian SC Linux booleans useful allow Apache to make outbound connections. Allow Apache to make outbound connections talking to backend services set SC bool capital HTTPD can network connect on. Allow use of sendmail from HTTPD set SC bool capital HTTPD can sendmail on underscore can underscore sendmail on. Hash allow Apache to read user home directories. Set SC bool capital HTTPD underscore enable underscore home DRS space on. File context if hosting in /srv manage if context http underscore sys underscore content underscore t double quote /srv/www parenthesis / asterisk question mark close parenthesis question mark close double quote restore con capital rv/srv/www firewall cmd permanent add services equal to http firewall cmd permanent add services equal to https firewall cmd reload Samba SMB or CFS ports 137/UDP 138/UDP 139/TCP 445/TCP packages Samba or SMB client config/etc/samba/smb.conf minimal flow share example in square brackets work group is equal to work group server string is equal to Samba server percentage %v security is equal to user in square bracket share path is equal to /srv/amba/share Roseable is equal to S gestoke is equal to no read only is equal to no users user add SMB user SMB pass WD SMB user start services systemctl enable no SMB NMB RHEL systemctl enable no SMBD NMBD Debian SC Linux allow home directory shares SC set SC bool capital B Samba underscore enable underscore home underscore DRS space on export the directory SC manage f context -t Samba underscore share underscore t double quote /srv/samba parenthesis / dot asterisk close parenthesis close question mark restore con capital rv/srv/samba if you must export read or write via NFS to look at Samba underscore export underscore all underscore RW boolean firewall cmd permanent add services equal Samba firewall cmd reload Squid proxy ports default 3128/TCP package squid config/etc/squid/squid.conf minimal ACL example http underscore port 3128 ACL local net src 192.168.1.0/24 http underscore access allow local net http underscore access deny all SC Linux if Squid needs to make arbitrary outbound connections at SC bool capital B Squid underscore connect underscore any space on firewall cmd permanent add port is equal to 3128/TCP firewall cmd reload send mail and postfix I will cover postfix common and brief send mail nodes postfix ports 25/TCP SMTP 587/TCP submission 465 TCP SMTP is optional config files etc postfix main.cf and etc postfix master.cf. Minimal main.cf examples. My hostname is equal to mail.example.com. My domain is equal to example.com. My origin is equal to dollar my domain. Inet underscore interfaces is equal to all. My destination is equal to dollar my hostname, comma localhost dot dollar my domain, comma localhost, comma dollar my domain. My networks is equal to 127.0.0.0/8 192.168.1.0/24. SMTP underscore use underscore TLS is equal to SMTP underscore TLS underscore cert underscore file is equal to slash etc slash pk slash TLS slash cert slash mail dot pem. SMTP underscore TLS underscore key underscore file is equal to slash etc slash pk slash TLS slash private slash mail dot key. Enable and start systemctl enable now postfix SLNX check booleans. Often postfix works out of the box. Dollar postfix to find extra port. SE manage port -a-t SMTP underscore port underscore et hyphen p TCP 587 firewall hyphen cmd hyphen permanent hyphen add hyphen service is equal to SMTP port 25 firewall hyphen cmd hyphen permanent hyphen add hyphen port is equal to 587 slash TCP firewall hyphen cmd hyphen reload send mail slash etc slash mail slash sendmail dot mc then generate slash etc slash mail slash sendmail dot cf m4 or make hyphen capital C slash etc slash mail. Port same as SMTP font details for sendmail workflow. I can expand NTPD or cron ports 123 or UDP packages NTP folder or cron in your default on RHL8 plus config files etc ntp.conf or etc crony.conf. Crony examples to hello local network clients. Hello 192.168.1.0/24 server 0.pool.ntp.org ibest drift file slash var slash live slash crony slash drift. Start and enable systemctl enable hyphen now crony d RHL systemctl enable hyphen now NTP Debian if using NTP firewall hyphen cmd hyphen permanent hyphen add hyphen service is equal to NTP or firewall hyphen cmd hyphen permanent hyphen add hyphen port is equal to 123 slash UDP firewall hyphen cmd hyphen reload. NIS legacy discourage for new deployments. Notes NIS uses RPC plus port mapper 111 and dynamic ports, insecure passwords and clear text. If you still must run it, prefer LDAP or Kerberos for user directory or auth. Basic steps: install YP bind or YP subset NIS domain slash etc slash default domain. Run YP init -m to build maps. Open RPC bind or YP sub dynamic ports via firewall or make them static similarly to NFS LDAP. Open LDAP or slapd ports 389 or TCP LDAP 636 or TCP LDAP S. Packages open LDAP servers RHL or slapd Debian. Config locations old style slash etc slash open LDAP slash slapd.conf. Newer cn is equal to config directory under slash etc slash open LDAP slash slapd.d LDIF based. Quick install plus basic steps Debian ish apt get install -y slapd LDAP utils during package. So etc open LDAP slapd.conf newer cn is equal to config directory under slash etc slash open LDAP slash slapd.tree quick install plus basic steps Debian ish apt get install -y slapd LDAP utils during package setup. You are asked for admin password or reconfigure dpkg reconfigure slapd. Add base entries using LDIF. dn colon dc is equal to example dc is equal to comma object class colon top object class colon dc object class colon organization o colon example link dc colon example LDAP add hyphen x hyphen capital D double quote cn is equal to admin comma dc is equal to example comma dc is equal to com hyphen capital W hyphen f base dot LDIF. SE Linux if serving certs or special directory set file context to allow slapd to listen on non-standard ports. SE manage port hyphen t LDAP underscore port underscore t hyphen p TCP 10389. Firewall hyphen cmd hyphen permanent hyphen add hyphen port is equal to 389 slash TCP Firewall -cmd permanent add port is equal to 636. Firewall -cmd reload IP tables. Example simple web server friendly policy flush IP tables capital F IP tables capital X accept loopback IP tables capital input LO J accept allow establish IP tables capital A input M contract CT state related established J accept allow SSH 22 IP tables capital A input PTCP D port 22 M contract C state new J accept allow HTTP or HTTPS IP tables capital A input PTCP D port 80 M contract CT state new J accept IP tables capital A input PTCP D port 443 M contract CT state new J accept default in IP tables P input drop IP tables capital P forward drop IP tables capital P output accept save IP tables save redirected to /etc/config /IP tables NF tables example create table in base chain NFT add table inet filter NFT add chain inet filter input 10 places type filter hook input priority 0 policy drop semicolon NFT add rule inet filter input IIF double quote hello accept NFT add rule inet filter input CT state established related accept NFT add rule inet filter input CT state established related accept NFT add rule inet filter input TCP I input TCP D port SSH CT state new accept NFT add rule inet filter input TCP D port ATCT state new accept NFT add rule inet filter input TCP D port 443 CT state new accept persist NFT list rule set redirected to /etc/nftables.conf systems it will enable -no nftables firewall d zones and services basics list zone firewall -cmd -get -active zones add service to zone permanent firewall -cmd zone is equal to public permanent add service is equal to http firewall -cmd zone is equal to public permanent add port is equal to 3128/TCP firewall -cmd reload add a rich rule limit connections firewall -cmd permanent add rich rule is equal to rule family is equal double quote IPv4 service name is equal double quote HTTP log prefix is equal to double quote HTTP drop limit value is equal to double quote 1/m accept firewall -cmd reload few practical notes and gotchas SC Linux rather than guessing boolean names use get SC bool -a pipe grep -a service and then set SC bool capital P name on use SC manage f context plus restore con to label content directories if SC manage missing install policy core utils python utils RHL or policy core utils Debian static RPC ports for NFS or NIS always set static ports for Mounty or STAT or logged if you run a firewall between clients and server example ports I used 892.662.404 for common choices. Make sure that you configure them in your distro's NFS defaults or module options. PXE plus Kickstart easiest flow DHCP points to TFTP server. PXE Linux.0 TFTP loads PXE Linux. PXE Linux downloads kernel and initard images. Kernel command line points to kickstart over HTTP case is equal to HTTP serving case over HTTP CCS for large images. NIS insecure prefer LDAP plus Kerberos for authentication. Testing SS-TULN or netstat-TULN to verify ports listening. System CTL status SVC name for service health. Journal CTL-SVC name for logs.